Hey there, listeners. This is our special COVID-19 pandemic, we're all stuck at home edition. We thought that we might do a special edition just to kind of sum up where we're at. I know everyone around the world is experiencing the same thing, which is unusual. So we're recording this on March 22nd, 2020. I'm Amy Matthews, and with me today are...
Alex Vickery-Howe.
Sean Williams.
And this is an episode of Word Docs.
Cue the theme music.
We might have to sing it. This is the era we're living in. Everything's done at home now.
Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
So we thought we'd have a special episode because we had pre-recorded a bunch, and then we thought we couldn't launch and not address the elephant in the room.
Because this episode we're recording right now, we're recording the very week that our first episode comes out. And in our early sessions, you'll hear us talking about being in the same room. And when we're talking about being in a room, it's not really a room. It's more like a telephone box. So we're all crammed in together. Forget social distancing.
It's not really compatible
today
with
we're
social
all
distancing.
we're all in different rooms today and we can't even see each other. But it's nice to talk to you.
Oh, that's right. And the other thing that would be very annoying about these, unnerving, I should say, about the early episodes is that Alex has a constant cough.
He does.
Yes, but
yes,
it was
he
way
does.
before COVID-19.
He's not responsible in the slightest.
So as we talk today here in South Australia, they're closing the borders of our state, and it's all very uncertain and very strange, and we're all working at home. And I haven't actually seen either of you for quite a long time.
No, you've been on study leave.
I have.
Lucky duck.
I've been on study leave. It's been weird timing to be on study
Do
leave.
you feel weirdly cheated that you're on
Yeah.
study leave and now we're all kind of on study leave? I mean, we're teaching, but...
I think what I feel cheated by is there's no travelling. So I can't go do the international travel I had been planning on, or even the local travel I'd been planning on. And I have 2 kids who are both at home. But we also have the added joy of we were renovating our home and we ripped off the back of our house. And we are currently staying in a very small 2-bedroom townhouse, all 4 of us. So the idea for my study leave was that they'd be at school and I'd sit here and write. But now we have a very small townhouse with 4 people in it. So
Sounds cozy.
Yeah, so we thought about the topic we were talking about today was writing in the face of adversity and how to look after yourself and still be able to maintain your writing practice in hard moments, and that feels very real to me. I haven't actually managed to settle down yet because the last 7 days have been crazy, but I'm hoping coming into this next week that I'll be able to find some time and peace in order to start writing again.
It's all about work-life balance, isn't it? And sometimes you might want to say, actually, it's okay not to write in this difficult time, which has caused me periods of great guilt and uncertainty in my life, but it's actually okay not to write sometimes.
Yeah. I felt incredibly anxious. When you listen to the rest of our episodes, you'll find I talk about feeling anxious a lot, but it's been so unsettling. I haven't been able to focus at all. So Alex, how about you?
Well, I was going to say, first of all, I think staying away from the news is such a hard thing to do right now.
I can't do it. It's not possible.
I'm finding Twitter more addictive than usual. My Twitter tends to be randomly aggressive towards Donald Trump supporters. That's basically what I do. But lately it's just been finding people who are feeling the same way and just kind of reaching out. And that's been kind of cathartic in a weird way. But at the same time, I have to say I'm being more productive now than I have been for a long time. And I think that's because my day isn't broken up by all these other things, whether that's teaching or seeing people or whatever's going on. I'm actually now waking up in the morning and working through till quite late at night. And then the guilt I feel, I suppose, is that I am okay, and knowing that there's a certain privilege that comes with the jobs that we have that allow us to kind of weather this. So my real concern is for health workers, for casual workers, for people who are running hospitality,
entertainment, tourism.
Absolutely.
I know.
One of our honours students works in a supermarket and is a manager there, so is pulling lots and lots of hours. I saw her today.
And they're so exposed, aren't they?
Oh, I know. She looked so exhausted.
And a lot of them are so young, and they're constantly at risk of catching it too. They're all so exposed to hundreds of people.
Yeah, and we just expect them to keep going. I had a fantastic conversation with, she was probably about 17, 18, and I was doing my kind of, it was the weirdest night. It was an evening at Woolworths a couple of days ago, very sparse, and everyone now stops when you reach for something because everyone's trying to maintain a distance.
Yeah.
And then it depends what you're buying. So if you're getting like peanut butter, everyone's watching you choose between the smooth or the crunchy. And that's kind of okay. But I did think in the back of my mind, what if it was hemorrhoid cream or I don't know, something, right.
Condoms.
Something a little bit personal. But then it was completely silent except for this one little girl who was singing, I think the song's called Young Blood.
Creepy.
And the lyric is, I'm just a dead man walking tonight. And she was just singing it in this perfect kind of Nightmare on Elm Street voice.
Oh.
She was having a good time, but it was unsettling. And then I spoke to the checkout girl and I said, what about you guys? And she said, basically, Woolworths is making a lot of money. Nothing against Woolworths, but they're making a lot of money, so we're expected to be here. And I did think, wow, these guys are
on the front lines.
Are risking themselves. They're in a strange way, they are on the front line.
We'd like to express our gratitude to all of them as well.
Absolutely.
And probably to Woolworths as well.
And Coles. Let's be fair.
Let's be fair.
Foodland, that's our local in South Australia.
But there is this strange thing going on where everyone's unnervingly polite as you're shopping now. I think because we've seen such horrible reports of people fighting over toilet paper, etc. Now everyone's just kind of silently respectful, which makes every purchase, I don't know, it puts a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
For those of us who are not naturally polite, is that what you mean, Alex?
Well, I just thought, you wouldn't want to be buying condoms or something. I suppose you wouldn't want to be buying condoms anyway right now, but...
I don't know, you might, because I'm half expecting there to be a massive baby boom in 2021.
And a big divorce boom as well.
Yeah, they said that. I read that somewhere in The Guardian or somewhere. So are you managing to be able to read during this crisis, or are you too distracted? Are you watching anything? Are you managing to do anything?
I'm reading
with the news?
Moby Dick. Because someone bought it for me and insists that I must read it, and I should have read it by now. And I feel like there's a time limit on it because he's going to ask me to report back and prove that I've read it.
You're 6 months of quarantine. Fine, then you've got
Call
a book.
me Ishmael, yeah.
We've been watching a lot of TV, so Better Call Saul and Dublin Murders and The Outsiders, fairly dark stuff, but very distracting too, which
We've
is welcome.
been showing the kids Lord of the Rings in installments. Isla's not ever watched it. And then I got a bit addicted to Cheer on Netflix. Has anyone watched that?
No.
It's this documentary series, and it's good. Once you get into it, it's so good. So many good characters. Cheer, it's about the Navarro cheerleaders who are like the national champions. But it's the characters in it are amazing, and the sense of tension. It was really well done. Anyway, that was nice because it's and it's quite heartwarming. But it's a nice, safe show to watch.
Well, I think that's part of it too. I've started watching Lock and Key, fantasy series. I think we're really looking for escapism right now, now more than ever.
But I think that's my problem with my writing is the book I'm working on at the moment is quite intense. It has, not to give anything away because you know this before the beginning, it has a character who dies, and you know at the beginning of the book that she's dead.
Right.
So I'm finding that having to write her experience of cancer really hard to do at the moment. Like I'm getting 50 words, 100 words and having to stop. I'm just finding it. I'm too emotionally raw at the moment to do it.
You need to write a cowboy romance.
I do. I think I need to write another cowboy romance.
You need to go back to the desert.
I need to do something fun. Yeah, go back to the desert. How do actors do it, Alex? I've always said to my students, I think being a writer is a lot like being an actor in that you have to get into character. You're just getting into lots of different characters at once.
I've known a lot of actors, and some people can literally just bounce in and out. A friend of mine worked with Rex Harrison when she was much younger, and she said he'd be chatting right up until the point that he stepped foot on stage about anything else. He'd come late to the dressing room, chat about other things, and then step on stage, do whatever it was he was doing, come back and pick up the conversation. So some people can just do that. But then I know others who are hardcore method actors, who make themselves sick. I know one actor who had to make himself feel stressed, so he ate like 7 cheeseburgers and ran around an oval.
Ugh.
There's a whole other level. Or same guy deliberately gave himself eczema on a set that I was on. I don't know how I think he did it with metal against his skin.
Wow.
It caused a rash, and that was to make make him more stressed.
Wow.
So people can go to these extremes and take a while to get in and out. But in terms of looking after your well-being, I think you just have to, however long it takes you to get in or out, you then, once you're out, have to find something mindless to do.
Yeah.
And I think similar as a writer, you might spend, as you say, 50 or 100 words or a period of time in a fairly dark space. And then you go, okay, I'm going to order Uber Eats and watch Lock and
watch
Key
Cheer.
for an hour. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Right. So, Sean, are you managing to write or read?
So the fun thing that I did yesterday was that a Australian magazine called the Andromeda Spaceways magazine emailed me to say, have you got any post-apocalyptic stories that maybe we could put up on our website, as free sort of content in these troubled times? And I said, oh yeah, I'll have a look and I'll see what I can find. And I ended up sending them 18 stories that fit that theme, and we decided there was enough for an anthology. There's like 85,000 words right there. So we're thinking of releasing a free anthology on the ASM webcast called A View from the End of the World.
Oh, wow.
And maybe we'll call in other authors who might have a lot to do something similar, because people are looking for books to read and things like that. So that was a really entertaining browse back through my archives. The earliest story I wrote in 1991, so that's almost, 30 years old. It's ridiculously old. So might need a small amount of editing, but right up to one that I wrote last year. So it's
so cool.
I'm actually appalled at how depressingly interested I am in the end of the world, but that's probably true for every science fiction
I read
writer.
that a lot of people doing that. I heard the book Station 11 everyone's reading. People are going back to watch what's it called? The movie.
Which movie?
Very
You just
famous,
became
very
my Nana
famous
Joy
movie.
in that moment.
I did. It's stress. I can't
You know
access
the
my
movie.
brain.
It's got that girl in it that you like. What
about the pandemic?
Outbreak.
You know the one. Yeah, ridiculous. But yeah, everyone's going back and watching all those old films
The
and
Stand,
reading. I'm
you know,
sure
Stephen
The Stand
King.
is big. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't
Absolutely.
want to engage with that kind of story. Like if The Stand came out on TV now, because they're making one, aren't they? A version of The Stand.
Oh, they
I'm
are,
just not
yeah.
ready
Yes.
to watch anything like that, where a flu-like disease
No,
kills
me neither.
99.99% of the population.
I want light and fluffy, please.
So has that meant that the things you're working on have changed, that you've perhaps prioritised different projects or put some things on the back shelf?
Stuff that I'm working on at the moment is all grant applications, which is actually really great because I don't have to think about what's happening at the moment. I get to think about what might happen in a year's time.
There's a lovely sense of focus to that stuff too, isn't it? Like such finicky focus that it takes your mind off things.
And there's nothing more sort of reassuring than looking back and saying, well, I've done all these things, maybe I can do these things, and I'll just skip all the messy stuff of being locked in my toilet for 9 months. It's quite comforting. I mean, if all of society collapses, none of these grant applications will go anywhere, but that's okay for now.
Yeah.
At that point, we're just eating each other, so that's fine.
That's right. Well, if society collapses, I'm going down to Haig's chocolate factory with an axe and chopping down the door and barricading myself in, and I'll be all right.
I'm just drowning in a fountain of Moscato.
Have you stocked up on that stuff? Have you stocked up on Haig's and Moscato?
I did buy some Haig's for today, but I've eaten.
Nice work.
I'll probably buy some bottles tonight.
I read that deliveries of alcohol have tripled
Oh, yeah.
in Australia.
I'm sure.
Like there's one thing, like the drive-throughs and who are doing delivery now are doing very well.
They are.
I have been thinking I've also got a big work of historical fiction, and I'm much more attracted to that. The idea of escaping into kind of a big historical saga seems quite attractive right now.
Well, I'd love to sit down and write my historical fantasy kids novel, but there's just so much other stuff going on at the moment, like moving all our teaching online. I mean, it's great and it's exciting and it's really interesting,
that's
but
huge.
it is huge. And I'm so grateful for you that I'm teaching your topic while you're away, Amy, because we can use your excellent lectures and the students will...
Oh, it's lucky that they exist. Like, I think that's wonderful that you can just use those because they include all the students from last year chipping into discussion and it gives you a sense of community when you're at home alone.
That's right. And of course, this year has been messy because we had 1 week and then I was sick for a week. I was actually off for a week. And then we had...
Not with coronavirus.
Not with coronavirus, just with a terrible, terrible cold. And then we were back for a week, and that week was spent mainly teaching people how to use Collaborate. So all the students are quite understandably feeling confused and discombobulated.
Yeah.
So it's
And it's so hard for first years this year, I think, Like, what an odd start to a year for a first-year student.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's
definitely
awful.
true.
I mean, on top of
That's
being young
absolutely true.
and having just left school, it's like, here's this new system. Oh, by the way, that system is now...
Yeah.
It's amazing. So we're being really generous. Well, I am being really generous. Extensions, stuff like that. We all need
I've
to
been very, very impressed with my colleagues and also with my children's school with the just the ingenuity and the hard work that all the teaching staff have put into going online, because it happens so quickly. And so just sort of seeing the creativity people have employed. My daughter's school did a test day on last Thursday. They're going on to video learning, like video classrooms. I guess it's a bit like Collaborate for us.
Yep.
A bit like Zoom, but not Zoom. And they actually had a PE, like a physical education class.
Really?
On the test
Oh,
day
that's
as well. Yeah.
interesting.
She had them doing circuits. So they were doing push-ups and squats and in groups, and then they can break off into online groups. And she had a great day, actually. I think she found it really nice to hang out with everyone all day, and they took their recess and their lunch. And so that's what they're doing from this week. I just was
joking
so
about
impressed.
that sort of thing, because the drama centre here at Flinders is still kind of going. And they were saying, how do we do yoga classes online? They have to do intimacy classes where young actors learn to be physically intimate with each other. And they were about to dive into that when we suddenly said, we're going
wow,
online.
imagine that. Don't touch each other as well. Social distancing intimacy.
It is weird because I remember when I did it in my year a long, long time ago, we did it in our third or fourth year, and the year had really crumbled by that point. There was a lot of issues within the year, so we kind of refused to do the intimacy class. You got to start early. So what we did bizarrely is we made out with cameras. We didn't actually kiss cameras, but we had to do make out faces in close up.
Oh,
weirdest.
Oh, wow.
Which I think
That
is
would be
somehow
hard.
weirder than actually just going for it. It was a very strange day.
I would find it so weird if you had to describe what you were doing intimately to someone. So using words to describe intimacy instead of just doing it like, I am touching your face, I am cupping your elbow. I would find that quite confronting.
Cupping your elbow is also weirdly...
It actually sounds quite... what's the word? Dirty.
It does,
Even
doesn't
though
it?
it's
It does,
not.
doesn't it?
I am cupping your elbow.
Elbows are
I am
hot.
cupping your
I know
elbow.
I'm in a weird little sub group of my own, but I think elbows are highly underrated.
Really?
Yeah.
See, there's a story. There's a story in that.
What's the word for the skin on? There is a word. Just getting back to Ridley stuff. There's a word for the elbow skin.
For the rough elbow
Yes, I'm
skin.
going to look it up while you guys chat about something else. I'm going to look it up.
Because that's the thing you want
Sandpaper,
on your internet
elephant
history
skin.
right there.
Yeah, that's right.
So you guys aren't really changing necessarily what you would otherwise be doing,
I don't think I can, because they're both projects that have been kind of requested. So.
and that have to happen.
But I do wonder about readership. I also do think once we settle in, I think this month has been weird, and I think every country is at a different point, right? So obviously, parts of the United States like New York and California are obviously further along the curve than other places.
Yes.
Here in South Australia, we're behind the curve compared to New South Wales or Victoria.
Yes.
And I think once you kind of are in lockdown and the weeks start dragging out, I expect people will be reading more and buying more books online again.
And once everybody knows what the situation is, once everybody's in the same situation, like we're all locked down, people will be going, right, this is what it's going to be for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. How are we going to stay sane? It's a bit like knowing you're going to be in Antarctica for 6 months over winter, say, then you need strategies.
Yeah.
That don't involve going to Bondi Beach with 1,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
not
See,
get
this
me
has just
started.
happened. If you're listening to this later, we've been reading about this today and we're so upset about it.
And if you went to Bondi Beach, I have many words to describe you, none of which are kind.
Hey, I've got a great word that you could use to describe them. This is the word for the skin.
the elbow
Yes,
skin?
it is. And I'm quite serious. This is what's a slang word, but it is a real word, and it is the weenus.
Oh, can we please call this
Yes.
episode Coronavirus Special Weenus?
Into the weenus.
If
Into the weenus.
you went to Bondi during the pandemic, you are a weenus.
So the technical term is olecranal
Step
skin.
away from the
weenus.
weenus. Weenus.
See, that this is probably something I shouldn't be sharing, but I've started the sentence now.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother, not Nana Joy, my grandmother Mavis, used to use the word weenus, but it wasn't to describe the skin on the end of your elbow.
Oh, and which kind of skin was she describing?
Hey, we're not doing intimacy class now, boys.
We're moving on. I also think it's hilarious that you find the weenus erotic.
Well, I find the whole elbow area erotic. I wouldn't say just specifically weenus skin. Like a picture of a weenus is not going to do it for me.
Do you know what this makes me think of? Is I don't know if I've said this on this podcast before. I feel like I have, but I might have said it in a classroom. That once you start writing sex scenes, you feel very exposed. Because Sean said cupping the elbow, and suddenly we're in this weenus conversation.
And we attacked him for it, and he was just trying to share something personal.
Alex wouldn't necessarily say cupping the elbow. He'd go for something else, right?
Well, it's even
I don't
worse
know what you'd go for, but
if you're writing for theatre or film, when you think not only does someone have to read this, someone has to do this, and I might know who that someone is, which is especially weird. And I'm writing something at the moment where I know who the cast are, and it's going to be quite a dark thing. And you go, it's one thing to say an actor is going to do this. It's quite another thing to say I'm going to make Sean do that. You know what I mean? And it feels it's like writing an unattractive character. Feels very strange. Again, especially when you know who that actor is, and you've got to write, things that other characters say that might be insulting, about a physical feature or whatever that may be. Yeah. And yet that is part of the gig. So that can be enormously uncomfortable. And it's one of the reasons I hate being in rehearsal rooms, because there's always that moment where everyone turns and looks at you and you kind of melt in the corner of the room and go, it made sense from a story perspective. I'm sorry that you now have to do this.
But why are you apologising,
really
Alex? I mean, it made sense from the story perspective. I know you may be offending an actor friend's sensibilities, but I think if they're going to act, they're going to be exposed to moments like that. I think we need to be sort of brave and bold and a little bit brash and say, the role of art is to elicit a passionate response if it's disgust, and if the vehicle for expressing that disgust is you as the physical actor or you as the reader or the word on the page. I think we've just got to go for it.
Well, that's kind of my attitude at the moment, but I always have that attitude while I'm writing something,
and then after,
and then it dissolves immediately after, and then I just go,
what have I done?
It's like waiting for reviews, isn't it? When you put it out for review and then you're like, oh, now I've got to think about what I actually wrote.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
It's because it's best not to think about it while you're doing it. It's a bit like sex, right? You shouldn't be like over-analysing cupping the elbow while you're cupping the elbow.
And it shouldn't be reviewed later.
Oh, why don't I go for the elbow?
I think there are moments you've got to stop and say, oh, is this all right? Have you got elbow weaknesses? But yes, I think you're quite right, Amy. If it becomes too self-conscious, it doesn't happen. And I'm talking about writing specifically, lest we have to slap an R rating on this episode.
But it's also, from a story perspective, because, what I haven't said yet, but it's hanging over my head, is I happen to have written a play that is supposed to be released, I think April 1st, which is a terrible day to release a play, or maybe it's April 4th.
Oh, April 4th is like the day we're supposed to hit the peak.
Is that it? Well, and I've written a play that deals with...
It's also the end of daylight savings, I think.
Well, that's not so bad, but it's a play that deals with viral play, and we're sitting on it going, okay... do we release it? Do we rewrite it? Do we
rewrite it.
Think very carefully about how we frame it? It's a performance that's been delayed, so that's going to complicate it.
I think it's so interesting that you came up, like you've written this play, and it was done, months ago, and it is so prescient that you've basically written about what's happening right now. I think that's a really interesting thing to talk about.
What worries me is that I don't think people necessarily know the timing of these things. So that we know that if something is published, it was actually written quite a long time ago, a long time before. But because the performance is going to be delayed by the time it actually goes on stage, it may be a year from now or at least 6 months from now. And by then I'm worried people are going to go, oh, well, you just jumped on a horrendous bandwagon. So that's a complicated thing. And it was such a ridiculously far-fetched idea. I mean, it really was, in July of last year, really was a sci-fi concept that a zoonotic pathogen would occur and spread and blah blah blah.
What animal did you pick?
It was cows in the in the play.
You're right, because they're saying this one was a pangolin, which I would not have picked.
Yes, no, but it was touching on this idea of how diseases travel from animals to humans, and I spoke to a couple of biologists who we looked at SARS, we looked at mad cow disease is a bit different. We were looking at a few different things. There's another one called rinderpest, which
nasty.
Nasty, yeah. And in the end, I sort of made one up. But while I was talking to the biologists, we were saying, what would happen if something like this was out of control? And both of them said, oh, well, the odds of this are not very high.
And here we are.
And yet here we are. But the dilemma for the character in the play is that she's trying to she's trying to release a disease that she can then control. And the thing that the biologist said to me is, if you were to release something like this, there's no way in hell you could ever control it. It would spread like wildfire, particularly if it was airborne. And so then to start to see that happen, and at first I kind of went, oh, okay, there's this coronavirus that's, I thought, well, that's probably going to be contained. It's not going to become as extreme as the play is. And then suddenly, week after week after week, you go, wow, okay.
And then this week, every day, like by every hour.
We're now living it, yeah. So that's quite a bizarre thing, and so it may affect, I think it will affect at the very least how that's framed, but it may affect whether I release it at all yet. I don't know.
I think you should. I think you should release the book, and I think you should release it as a radio play, and then everyone will know that you're like Nostradamus.
But a horrible Nostradamus.
And please just write happy stories next. Can you write a sequel where they fix it?
Yes, that would be good.
They get the vaccine.
And all the boomers are gone, and all the young people.
Oh, not all of them, because my parents are still boomers. I want them to stay.
Only the nice.
Yeah, but it's bizarre.
So I think it's probably time that we return to the other members of our household, having had a lovely chat with each other, and let our listeners return to their lives, to the stories they're writing. What are your plans for tomorrow, Amy and Alex? Are you waiting to see what the news brings us, or are we recording more episodes, for instance? That's high on my list.
Yeah, I think we should record. I really have loved this. It's been so nice talking to you.
Yeah,
and
it's lovely.
I think if we could do this regularly, it would make me really happy. And I'd love to talk writing stuff. I'm actually trying to write a novel in the next couple months. So it would be wonderful to touch base and talk writing.
Yeah, great.
That'd be great. So tomorrow I'm going to get up, I'm going to do some exercise, and then I'm going to get writing.
Fantastic.
I think I'll try and follow your example with or without the exercise.
I have to do some exercise because I've not been well for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I the gym's closing. I haven't been to the gym anyway. I really got to stop eating chocolate. I need to get off my fat riderly ass and do some.
I know
walking.
that's the problem with being a writer, isn't it? You've really got to put some exercise in your day, or you end up sitting all day or standing at your standing desk.
Well, actually, that's a topic we should have talked about today: wellness.
Well, let's still do wellness sometime, because I think that's a really big topic for writers.
Oh yeah,
I'll make a note of that. Wellness.
I've written wellness and I've put a big circle around it, so therefore it's impossible for me to forget.
Therefore, it will happen.
Excellent. Well,
but please do go have a look at all the episodes that will be coming out in the next weeks, because they have been pre-recorded and they are about writing, all different aspects of writing, and they'll be, if you want to sit at home during your isolation period and work on your stories, your books, your plays, your screenplays, your poetry, hopefully we can give you some company on your journey.
That's right. And we have social medias. We are on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. You'll find all the details on our Ozcast page, but they're all variations on the Word docs with underscores and dashes and all that sort of stuff. So come and visit us there. Send us photos of your desks. Send us pictures of your works in progress. Send us pictures of cats. That's always cheering.
I have a writing cat. She comes and sits next to us while we
I
write.
support writing support cats. See, I have no writing support animals at all.
Alex has ants. Writing ants.
Oh, Alex, please, can you please post a photo of your ants if you can catch them before they scurry away?
Oh, there's so many that won't be a problem.
Oh, fantastic. Could you pick your favourite, the most photogenic?
Your favourite ant.
Stay well, everybody, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, take care of yourselves. See you next time.
See you soon.
Why don't you write when you don't need money? All your notes sound alike too much. All of them start with I love you, honey, but they end with the same old touch. Just for a change, send a nice loving letter and cut out that please remit. Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
I used to resent the ants in my kitchen, but now they're becoming pets.
They're
Weirdly,
like friends.
Yeah, they're like friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's quite sweet, actually. Are you going to write a giant multi-book fantasy epic about the life of your ants?
Lord of the Ants.
I might. Lord of the
Alex,
Ants.
Lord of the Ants.
The funny thing is, though, when you turn the light on in the kitchen, they do know you're there, and they scatter back into their little hole behind the tap, which
They're
kind of endears
self-isolating,
me.
Alex.
They're
They're self-isolating.
They're social distancing. It does kind of endear me to them in a weird way because it's like, abort mission, he's here, abort mission.